now that I've been situated. Congratulations, you have stumbled upon a shitty D&D campaign's video recap, and now I have forced you to listen. So, sit back, relax, let's talk about the Sunchasers and my campaign, The Endless Night, and I'm going to give you the campaign recap. Alright, so this last session was February 1st, 2026. First, we left off with them getting chased and them turning into a mole, digging through a mine shaft, and then closing it behind them, seemingly escaping for now. So we pick up in the collapsed mine shaft. The Warforged monk Adam, A-T-O-M, he wants to be called ATM, but we call him Adam, the first man, or first Warforged in this world, holds the Elven Moonblade in his hands. This is the blade that they found off the corpse in the rubble that they moved. He notices the shine from the edge of the blade slightly dim at his touch. And then, after a pause, visions pass through his mind. His consciousness gets lifted upward, into the sky, and then hoisted towards the south. Far beyond the deserts of loss, the sands of loss. Far beyond the crumbling free cities, and into the Emerald Sea. Down deep into what looks to be a fog-bitten swamp. And in this darkness, in these trees where the roots make up most of this jungle floor, a pair of yellow eyes can be seen. Then 2, then 7, then 9, 15, and then more than the ATM can count. And where his chest should be, arrow pierces. And this vision fades. He resumes consciousness, left with more questions than answers as to exactly what that vision meant and who was communicating it. But he gets the sense that it was from the blade itself. After all, they did identify it, and they do know that it's sentient. So one would assume, puts 1 + 1 might equal 2. But they decided to go forth after this discovery. Not too sure how to proceed with that. They came to a merger. They found a foul smell. Following it led them to reveal yet another cave-in. Seems to be a recurring pattern. But what appeared to be a gauntlet sticking out from beneath the rubble. Deciding that they want more loot, they'd uncovered this body and quickly found that it was actually getting eaten by something else. So the guy's sticking out and it's getting chomped on by what looks to be like an overinflated soccer ball with rows of teeth. And both the entity that is now lifeless in this thing's mouth and the entity that was chewing on it and their surrounding bodies have all perished in what seems to be this cave-in collapse. The warlock, being the interesting magic man that he is, told the group that he did connect, or did find, the warlock being the magic man that he is, did happen to find a couple peens of magical items inside this creature's stomach, because of course he did, and with no further need of enticement, our barbarian decides to just waddle on into his corpse and fish around in the guts of these long dead adventurers and get paid, as it were. They did get a lot of gold. I think they got like at least 3,000 gold, 5,000 silver, and 300 copper. I don't have the exact figures. I have them in my notes. But they did get quite the payday. And then I think, no, they got 1 potion of superior healing, and they didn't really find anything else other than the moonblade on the other corpse. So they got breaded. And then again, it's been a while since I've actually paid them out, so it was kind of their due. Oh, and I'm going to put up here, they also got like a potion of universal resistance. So it was pretty good stuff. The gravestone tree. So Time, once more, has passed, and they continued exploring after leaving the foul odor of the copious amounts of bodies in various dilapidated states. They left this area and ventured to the right, seeing after around 10 to 15 minutes a weird greenish blue hue. They proceeded cautiously, got to this area and what looked to be like this weird slit crawl space. The rogue snussed things out, figured that it was safe, and then the barbarian, of course, decides to just go fluttering in with his boots a flying. And the sight that they see is interesting. First, they hear the water as they pass this bend of this really tight crawl space where they're having to kind of like shimmy on their side. They come into this chamber with purple crystals in the cylinder-like chamber. It's around 20 feet in diameter, with a waterfall on the right coming from the top. The water sitting at the bottom in a circular pattern, with a small island being in the middle of it. The water's black, but on this island there is this coiled tree where it looks like thousands and thousands of twigs have combined to make this tree, where at the very top, instead of there being leaves, there is just tiny motes of energy. And in front of this tree, there appears to be 7 gravestones. The gravestones aren't like what you'd expect in Washington, D.C. for fallen soldiers. They're weapons. A bow, an axe, a sword, lined up next to each other, not named, but with soil that's been tossed and lightly patted. It seems to be a chamber of rest, for some. And with that, the barbarian decided to pilfer the walls and steal all of the crystals on the side of it, or at least try to take one, at the behest of the rogue. And upon doing so, decided that a tree got woken up from its anger. As soon as the barbarian took one of the crystals, his mind was shunted. And he was utterly entranced by this tree and wanting to go further into it. The tree began to unwind, and before them became a sight like the Whomping Willow and the Prisoner of Azkaban from Harry Potter. Luckily, the monk reacted fast, threw a javelin at the barbarian, and although it did sink into his stomach, managed to return his javelin to him. And then the barbarian returned to his senses and quickly left the chamber. They decided to let whatever was happening in that chamber rest. Leaving the chamber, they continued down the shaft, and after 20 minutes came to what seems like another cave-in. Or perhaps maybe just the end of the progress that was made in this excavation of this area. As the minecart tracks that they were following came to an end. Amid the solid stone in front of them, however, there was a point here, like a rest point. Beds, chests, rusted tools, and kind of like a side chamber around 10 feet before the actual facing, like work in progress area where they were mining. One of the bunks, they spotted a 4-foot individual still under his blankets, although his skin and the blanket both have seemingly turned into one as he's become emaciated and almost nearly like a bleached skeleton, to the point of almost petrification. Still in his bed. And in one of the chests, they also found a journal detailing some key events. The rest of it seems to have water damage, but from the parts that they could make out and flip through, it's dated around 120 years ago. There's like 4 to 5 legible entries. The individual noticed a handful of red cloaks, whatever that means. Up to, apparently, these individuals were scouting around Drow territory, and he had a sense of foreboding about what this meant for the stability of the region. Increased quotas, withholding of pay, disputes with his foremans and bosses, the name drop of Ilyandra, no last name. That's where they left off, and then pretty much next week they're going to be exploring or exiting the mine and seeing what the rest of this mine has in store for them. If it's reacted to the noise and the battle they had with the undead in the chamber previously that they were in before they went into this offshoot area, or if they were just going to be able to walk nice and neat with no repercussions. Who's to say? DM talk. This was more so an exploration session. They just finished. It's a medium encounter. They just finished a medium encounter. They needed a short rest. And all in all, it was a pretty good time for them just to get paid, because it's been like 4 or 5 combat encounters where they couldn't actively loot bodies. So this is where they could actually get a decent amount of money on top of like the bounties that they're also going to get. So a good bit of exploration. There was a really good RP moments with the cleric. Like I have a hireling cleric who's named Aranthos Phalanx. They had when they were discussing the journal with him, and they were trying to figure out what pretty much these notes were signaling. He kind of helped them piece together some of the history, but there is even a limit to what he knows. They pieced together some of the bits about Yandra, with potentially being one of the 3 key members. They don't know how common that name is. But who's to say? I look forward to what's going to happen in next sessions, especially with what's going to happen inside the mine, and eventually, especially if they get to this boss fight. I am looking forward to that greatly, because the stat block for this enemy is oh so cool. And I've changed some of it slightly because you kind of have to, but it's going to be a really cool fight. I'm looking forward to what's going to happen in the rest of the mine, and also just for them to get out of the dungeon and be more open territory again. Don't get me wrong, I love dungeons, but they also are kind of like a crawl. So hey, stay tuned next time. I will get this edited as fast as I can, and next time we play next week, I will upload the next part after the dungeon and boss fight.